Hey man, there's a quiet strength in a man who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, doesn't over-explain, but also doesn't carry resentment in his voice. He's not out here trying to hurt people, but he also won't let himself be hurt twice by the same energy. This man is what I call cold, but not cruel. He's emotionally detached from drama, disrespect, and disloyalty, but never detached from integrity. He can walk away mid-conversation without slamming a door. He can end a relationship without raising his voice. He doesn't play with people, but he also doesn't let people play with him. And that balance is where real masculine power begins. See, most men are taught to choose between two extremes. Either be the overly soft, nice guy who never says no and lets everyone in, or be the cold-hearted alpha who shuts everyone out and uses emotional distance as a weapon. But neither of those are strength. One is weakness disguised as kindness. The other is insecurity disguised as dominance. True strength lives in the center, in the man who can say, I care, but I don't chase. I feel, but I don't fold. I walk away, but I don't burn bridges. That man is cold in the most respectful way possible. He's unshaken, not unkind. So what does it mean to be cold without being cruel? It means you don't fight for your place in someone's life. If a woman pulls away, gives you attitude, or becomes inconsistent, you don't argue or ask for answers. You don't punish her or play mind games. You just remove your energy quietly. You don't ghost her. You don't insult her. You just exit the space with dignity. And that exit, that silence, that emotionally clean withdrawal, it carries more power than any bitter monologue ever could. Because now, she's not reacting to your anger. She's left wondering how you stayed so calm. To be cold without cruelty means you operate on principles, not emotions. You don't need her to feel pain for you to feel power. You don't send passive-aggressive texts. You don't try to make her jealous. You just live your life, fully, focused, forward. And in doing so, you remind her, and anyone else who ever took your energy for granted, that your presence isn't something to gamble with. You're not a game. You're not a toy. You're not a backup plan. You're a man who can care deeply and still walk away without a trace of bitterness. Being cold means you don't argue with disrespect. You don't try to fix people who clearly benefit from breaking your peace. You don't try to heal things that keep cutting you. You say no more, but you don't scream it, you live it. You don't give second chances to behavior that you already addressed. You don't look back once you've been disrespected twice. And when she sees that, when she feels that you can still look at her with respect, while also being completely inaccessible, that's when your value hits her like a wall. Because now, she knows she's lost access to something she didn't believe would ever leave. To be cold without being cruel is to hold grace without guilt. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need to prove your point. You're not cold to punish. You're cold to protect. Your peace, your path, your priorities. You're not lashing out. You're simply moving on. And you move on in silence, with class. Without fanfare. You let people sit with the weight of your absence, not because you want them to suffer, but because you refuse to keep suffering just to stay connected. It's the man who doesn't flinch that earns the most respect, not the one who retaliates, not the one who overreacts. It's the man who can sit with his emotions, feel them fully, and still choose discipline over destruction. That's real coldness, not emotional numbness, but emotional containment. You feel everything, but you don't let anything drag you out of character. And when you live like that, you stop attracting chaos, because people realize they can't move you through noise. They either come correct, or they don't come at all. When a woman realizes she can't manipulate your emotions, she stops trying to play, not because she fears you, but because she respects you. Your coldness makes her feel safe, not because she thinks you don't care, but because she knows you care without being controlled. You're not reactive. You're receptive, but not penetrable. You hear her, but you don't let every word change your direction. You see her, but you don't chase her when she walks. That's the kind of presence that makes her start asking herself, what do I have to become to be near a man like that? Being cold doesn't mean you're closed off. It means your doors don't open for just anyone. You don't give your loyalty to women who disrespect your time. You don't share your vision with people who laugh at your discipline. You keep your inner world private, sacred, because you've worked hard for your peace, and you're not about to trade it for temporary attention. You're warm with those who earn it, but with those who test you, you're not cruel. You're distant. And that distance, it's not punishment, it's precision. You don't respond just to keep someone comfortable. You don't speak just to avoid silence. You let people wonder what you're thinking. You don't give them closure, you give them consequences, not by lashing out, but by not returning. And when they look for the drama, when they expect you to break, what they find is a man who never once stopped smiling, even as he walked away. That smile, that peace, that's what haunts them. That's what sticks, because it wasn't cruel, it was final. You also begin to realize that being cold, in its purest form, is not about people at all. It's about what you refuse to tolerate within yourself. You don't act out of emotion. You don't give energy to things you've already outgrown. You don't stay in conversations that go nowhere, and you don't entertain dynamics that deplete your spirit. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not even trying to win. You're simply saying, this is my standard, and if this space doesn't rise to it, I leave. Not to punish, not to teach, but to protect the version of you that no longer tolerates being misunderstood, mistreated, or misused. And sometimes the most powerful coldness comes in the smallest moment. A woman sends a passive-aggressive message, you don't reply. She tries to bait you into an argument, you don't bite. She gets emotional and expects you to mirror it, but instead you pause, you stay silent, you observe. And then, instead of retaliating, you respond from stillness. That stillness disarms her, not because you're playing games, but because she's so used to men reacting, trying to fix, trying to please, trying to regain control. But you never lost control in the first place. That's the real secret. You're cold because you don't fight for what doesn't fit. You don't rage against misalignment. You don't try to convince someone to come correct. You show them how it's done, and then you disappear if they don't meet you there. And they feel that absence. They don't feel punished. They feel the void of a man who meant what he said. Because your boundaries aren't verbal, they're embodied. And when your body language, your silence, your eye contact, your walk, all speak the same truth. You don't need to raise your voice. She hears you anyway. You never let your coldness turn into cruelty because you've done the work. You've sat in the dark with your own emotions. You've met your own pain. You've broken cycles without burning bridges. You've closed doors without locking them in anger. And that emotional maturity is what lets you walk away with grace. You're not running from her. You're returning to yourself. And anyone who thinks that's cruel was never meant to hold the level of peace you were protecting in the first place. Sometimes, your coldness is what teaches her what kindness actually is. She thought kindness was attention, validation, the man who says yes to everything. But she starts to realize that real kindness is boundaries. It's the man who holds her accountable without controlling her. It's the man who removes himself instead of lashing out. It's the man who doesn't beg for her to act right, but who only stays when she does. And that lesson doesn't hit immediately, but when it does, it's unforgettable. Because now she's not remembering your words, she's remembering how different you felt from the rest. This is also why your coldness can never come from ego, because the second it does, it's no longer cold, it's bitter, it's reactive, it's I'll show you. But the man who moves from clarity, he doesn't need to show anything, he simply is. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't make dramatic exits, he doesn't send angry paragraphs. He simply removes himself, changes the locks on his energy, and keeps walking. And every step forward is powered by peace, not pain, not performance, just presence that no longer compromises. And here's the truth, a lot of men miss. Women don't stop loving the men who go cold. They stop loving the men who lose respect for themselves. The moment you stop holding frame, the moment you start chasing what disrespected you, the moment you fold just to get her back, that's when she checks out, not when you said no, not when you pulled away, but when you abandoned your own standard just to feel close to someone who wasn't offering clarity. That's why being cold, when done right, actually preserves her respect, even if the relationship ends. Eventually, your coldness becomes your protection. It's not something you flaunt. It's not something you weaponize. It's just something you live by. A silent filter, a quiet strength. It keeps the wrong people away and invites the right ones to rise to your level, because now they know they can't use your emotions against you. They can't manipulate you with distance. They can't test you with attitude. You're not unkind, you're unshakable. And to the woman who's ready to be real, that's not scary, that's safe. So when people say you're cold, smile. That means you've stopped over-explaining. That means you've learned to walk instead of wait. That means your no has finally become your answer. You're not playing games, you're just not playing their game anymore. And if your stillness confuses them, let it. That silence you carry, it's not emptiness. It's the sound of a man who finally learned how to stop leaking energy for people who never planned to pour anything back. So remember this, man. Being cold isn't about being mean. It's about being selective. It's about moving from truth. It's about choosing peace over chaos, direction over drama, discipline over reaction. You don't have to yell. You don't have to explain. You don't have to get even. You just move calmly, quietly, and in doing so, you show her and the world that your presence was never about possession. It was always about principle. And that's the kind of cold she'll feel long after your footsteps fade.